Okay.
Welcome to another MoonLore. Today we are talking about the Libra New Moon, which happens on October 6th at, what time does it happen at, Jenny?
7:05 a.m. Eastern time.
Oh, okay. So when you wake up, we're going to be in a new moon. So the first thing we want to think about here is the cycles of the moon. Many of you know about the cycles, but just to reiterate it, we start the cycle at the new moon. The new moon is when the sun and the moon come together in the same place, and that starts a process. We think of it, we can correlate it to the plant cycle and think of it as the time when we plant a seed. A week later, we come to the first quarter moon, which is when an action needs to be taken for the development of that seed. And then a week after that, we come to the full moon, which is the full illumination of what began at the new moon. And then a week after that, we come to the last quarter moon, which at that time we begin to break things down and let go in order for preparation for the next new moon. So the new moon it's a beginning. It's a time when we can reset our attentions, our intentions and attentions in order to move forward. So that's the cycle that we're looking at. Now, this is a new moon in Libra. Mm-hmm. So is there anything you want to say about the cycle itself before we just start talking about Libra?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. All right. So the fact that it's in Libra puts us in a thought of what's Libra about?
Well, let's talk about Libra in terms of the scales is the thing that you see, the glyph that goes along with Libra, or not the glyph, but the symbol. And I think that's a pretty good way of thinking about it. So when you think about scales, you're thinking about weighing things. So Libra has this reputation for being indecisive on the kind of less happy side or kind of wishy-washy. And that's because Libra is always considering both sides. Libra is always seeking balance and wanting to find some kind of harmony. So in personalities, this can be somebody who's really charming and fun to be around because they want things to feel copacetic. And that's part of it, is being this kind of charmer. The other thing that I sometimes forget to talk about with Libra is just how important it is for the artist. It has this very artistic part. It's kind of the artistic mind. So there's that piece of it too. So concerned with aesthetics and beauty and wanting things to be flowing in a nice, harmonious way.
And I like how you said the artistic mind, because Libra is an air sign. It comes from the intellect. And I think that's something that gets lost with a lot of people. Libra is a cardinal air sign. The fact that it's cardinal, it's a strong energy. It's a real startup energy. And because Libra is so concerned with creating balance, it sometimes doesn't look that way. That's the funny thing about Libra is it looks pretty. It looks like it's, all nice and it's charming and it's beautiful and it's creating balance and harmony in its environment. But this is a strong sign that is going to take action and move forward. And it's an air sign, so it's coming from the intellect. Mm-hmm. Venus, the planet Venus, rules Libra. It also rules Taurus. And people sometimes, grapple with, well, what's the difference? In Taurus, Venus is a very body-centric. That's an earth sign. So it's really about physical beauty or physical, I think of it in terms of, you want to get your hands in the earth and those kind of things. It's a very physical sign. This is an air sign that's ruled by Venus. So it's the artistic mind. Exactly. That's a perfect way to think of it. Mm-hmm. The other thing about Libra, as with all signs, there's a positive and a negative manifestation. So what would you say is the more difficult, challenging side of Libra?
I think some of it is as like the indecisiveness or the wishy-washiness that can happen. Some of it is the tendency maybe to kind of fold or cave into the prettiest option instead of standing one's ground. So I think in that way, that's why it has earned its reputation of being a little maybe weaker. But that's just when it's more out of balance. I think it's when it's out of balance, it's kind of like, I want peace at all costs, and it may end up sacrificing something more important than peace in that moment. And I think that is really the tricky side of it. Um, but I think on the more positive side, what is really cool about Libra is its emphasis on social interdependence. So it wants people to function and be and participate. So it has this ability to kind of draw people in and get people moving in that direction. And that's part of its kind of charm and its ability to kind of weave things together and emphasize that interdependence.
Quality,
Yeah.
that quality relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I do think it's I was just going to comment that it's like Lady Justice. I mean, Lady Justice also has those scales. So when you're thinking about justice, Libra's definitely a sign of that, trying to weigh those scales and balance them out. So,
And another really out of balance expression of Libra that I always think of, because it's so interesting, is that Libra, you can just imagine Libra stepping into a room and there's a battle going on, and it will try to create balance and stabilize everything and get everybody happy, and then it leaves the room. If it comes back in the room and everything's balanced and happy and everyone's getting along, it's going to throw a bomb in the middle in order to have a job to restabilize. Libra out of balance does not have a job if there's no balancing to be done.
mm,
So that's something to, really pay attention to. I think people with a lot of Libra can fall into that trap if they're not paying attention and doing the higher side of it.
yeah. I remember you bringing in the idea of like one of the archetypes being the devil's advocate. And I thought that was really great because it certainly reminds me of some of my own family systems where there's a pretty big emphasis on Libra and just like the devil's advocate. Well, what did you do to create less balance, and this kind of casting the light in a way that you're like, I don't want to think about that. I want to blame it on the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a family member with a strong Libra component. And one of their roles in the family was the troublemaker. This was the troublemaker. But that's the Libra out of balance. All right. Are we ready to look at the chart?
Yeah, let's get that up here. And here it is. I'm sure you all immediately see the lots of Libra in this Eastern chart, because in this house it's all falling in the first house in the Eastern chart, and you have Moon and Sun together, and right there on top of it, all in the mix, is Mars. And you can kind of skip over the ascendant sign just because that's specific for Eastern time, but you will also see Mercury's in the mix, and Mercury is retrograde.
Mercury is retrograde, right?
So it's heading back towards this stellium, or it's not really a stellium, but this grouping in Libra. And so you can't look at this new moon, which we will discuss, without recognizing that it's right in the mix with this Mercury retrograde cycle, which is a 3-week cycle, and we're coming up to the middle of it. So that is very much part and parcel of this whole situation.
Yeah, you can think about it just in terms of the movement of the planets. The planets are moving in this direction counterclockwise. Mercury already passed over the Sun and Mars, and now it is backing up again to greet it again. And when Mercury reaches the Sun, sometime next week, that is the midpoint of the Mercury retrograde.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be October 9th.
Okay, thanks.
And I just was reading it, so yeah.
Just a few days after the new moon. Okay, so the thing that stands out the most to me is that conjunction with Mars.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about this as, okay, this is a moment to plant a seed, you dig that hole to put that seed in, Mars is part of the bargain. Mm-hmm. You're not going to plant that seed without planting Mars right along with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting, Laurie and I were talking before this, and I think there's sort of two kind of ends of the spectrum. One is that Mars can present as a pretty serious, like an irritation, an annoyance, a tendency to want to just super kind of blow up and be really irritated really easily. There's kind of an inflammatory nature to it. It's like having you know, an irritation underneath the skin and having it flare up into something that you can see that is red and maybe a little bit painful.
Frustration and anger.
Yeah, so that's really, and it does an ease, it's sort of readily accessible. On the other hand, it invites this idea to take action, that there's an action that must go along with this more so than usual. And the action is kind of instantaneous. And so if you can notice that there's maybe an inflammation or irritation, and because you're aware, not necessarily give in to the desire to erupt, then you can take that energy and make it into an action and make
Yeah.
it productive.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what well, it's kind of the kind of astrology we like to use and look at, and try to look at how can you use your awareness to harness this in a good way.
Right. So along with the action of planting the seed, planting an action, planting a way for that energy to really have,
Yeah.
to add to the, what you're putting, let's see, what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Like an impetus.
Yeah, something. There was a word. It escaped me. It's okay. But anyway, it really is. I mean, because these are all three at 13 degrees. Mars has just barely passed over there, which means as well that, you know, Mars is right there with the sun, which is not necessarily a great thing. You know, what do they call it? Cazimi? Is that used for?
Yeah. Well, it's a cazimi when it's right in the heart of the sun, and it's only a few minutes out, not even degrees. It's only a few minutes out that it's considered combust. And
Okay.
I believe that this Mars is actually combust because it's just far enough out. It's like 24 minutes out from the sun. So those are not minutes as in time, but just as
So it hasn't even gotten far enough away to take a breath yet. It is in the flames of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in Hellenistic astrology, it just means it's totally invisible. So not only do you have a Mars in a sign that it doesn't really care to be in, it's in Venus's sign of Libra. Mars doesn't want to be there. It's also invisible. Mars also does not like to be invisible. And that's why it's very easy for this to come out as an inflammation, and why it's going to require your kind and loving attention to turn that into an action rather than letting the irritation be the primary thing.
Right.
It's not useful, you know?
Yeah, if you're thinking, oh, this is this lovely, beautiful Venus ruled Libra sign, this lovely social graces of Libra, we're going to plant a seed of beautiful social graces. Well, underneath there is that Mars. So there's got to be something hotter in your intention.
Yeah,
I think. And the other thing that I'm ready to look at here is the fact that Saturn is forming a beautiful trine aspect to that. So there is a stabilization. Make sure you're aware that the seed you're planting has that heat in it, that need to really take the bull by the horns, so to speak. But there is a stabilization for that. You've got to do that. But Saturn is standing aside saying, okay, I'm going to support you. I'm going to help out here.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I think that it does help it. Saturn is very different than Mars. It's, you know, it's much cooler. So in that nice trine position, it offers kind of a a cooling effect, we'll just say, to kind of soothe that down a little bit. So that's nice, very helpful. I guess what I was also thinking about is, I mean, there's a couple other things we can look at, but I was thinking, I'll stay with aspects. So the other thing that I think is interesting is that it opposes Chiron. I've been working with Chiron lately, and it's very interesting, but Chiron is that wounded healer. So whenever we see Chiron in aspect, we're thinking about what's the bigger picture? You know, what is the higher purpose of this whole situation? Because really what we're trying to do is heal wounds, and there are many in our personal lives and in society right now. So really it's sort of saying, hey, we're showing a view, a way, a pathway to find more healing in this configuration. So I think that kind of brings that in.
Yeah.
And it's in Mars sign of Aries. So that kind of gives an extra, like, yep, this is what it's about. It's about taking good action, taking right action on something.
Right. And then, if you look at your own chart, if you're using whole sign house system, which I would encourage everyone to use, it's so much, yeah. I could carry on about whole signs. I love whole sign houses. But if you're looking at your chart and whole sign houses, find where Libra is. That's where you plant your seed. Also look to where Aquarius is showing up in your chart. And in that area, that's where the support is coming from in this moment, in this new moon. You're planting a seed in the house that holds Libra. Now, if you're new to this, how do you know what house it is? Start at this point and look around until you find that symbol for Libra. And then look around further until you find the symbol for, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Until you find the symbol for Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And then look around and find the symbol for Aries. Look at those 3 points and understand that the seed you're planting has its roots in some sort of a wound in the house of Aries. And there's a soothing, supportive energy from the house that holds Aquarius. If you look at those 3 places and think this out, this can be a very powerful opportunity for you to plant a seed that will support the work of healing that wound in yourself or in others and allowing yourself to be supported in the process.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and because we are in the Mercury retrograde cycle too, the other thing to add to that is we're dealing with unfinished business. So this is an opportunity to work with something. It's kind of like giving yourself permission to work with something that's maybe from the past, and perhaps you decide, oh, I should just forget about it because it's the past. Well, with the Mercury retrograde, it says, well, maybe that's not totally unfinished. So go ahead and take another look. And it doesn't mean wallow and dwell necessarily, but it means just be willing to take another look, because that's kind of what it's something from the past that tends to be I don't know, part of the fly in the ointment to this whole situation.
It's absolutely fascinating. And yeah, it certainly fits with my life at this moment. I bet it does with all of you if you're thinking about it and really paying attention.
Yeah.
So, and yeah. So from here, the next thing that we can do, Jennie, is we can go over kind of the personal meanings for the different houses that this falls in different people's charts.
Sounds good.
We ready to do that?
I think so, because there's always a million more things you could say, and I think that's a good point to pause and make this more personal. So let's do it.
Okay, so first of all, if you've got Aries rising, I would say that, well, if you've got Aries rising, this Libra new moon falls in your 7th house. So the metaphorical seed that you're going to want to plant is going to be for the increase of balance and cooperation in your business partnerships, your romantic partnerships, any individual relationships. So you're going to want to bring impartiality to others in order to support deep connection, but bring Mars in there too. It's not a passive process.
Yeah.
Process.
Agreed.
Yeah. So take your partner skydiving or something.
To bring harmony into your relationship.
Hey, it might be just the thing that's needed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a tricky balance between having enough space, but yet engaging with an action. And that's always one of those questions in your one-on-one relationships anyway. Yeah. And I mean, this also includes, the only thing I would add is just like one-on-one relationships also includes your rivals. It also includes, and your rival in the sense, like think about a tennis match and 2 people playing tennis against each other. If they're both playing at their best, then they're helping each other be their best. And so there's a little bit of that idea of rivals too. So I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, I love that. That's a really good example, Jennie. I really like that. That's great. Okay. So now if you have Gemini rising, this new moon is going to land in your 5th house.
We skipped Taurus.
What'd you say?
Skip Taurus.
Oh.
Let's do, yeah, we got to do Taurus.
Oh, I,
Sorry to interrupt, but I was like, wait.
thank you. I'm just flying ahead here.
Yeah.
Mercury is retrograde. Yeah. Okay. So let's do Taurus.
Yes.
So if you have Taurus rising, the Libra new moon is falling in your 6th house. So that metaphorical seed that you're going to plant is going to be for more balance and harmony in your daily routines, your habits, your daily chores, whatever, however you think about that. You're going to, it would be a great time to start a meditation practice, but with Mars there, it's probably going to be more of a lifting weight practice or something with more energy to it. But you want to, determine to focus on beauty and refinement in those areas of daily routines.
Yeah, that sounds good. One thing that comes to mind for when you throw the Mars in there is to have a more of a, it could be more of a martial practice, like not with a partner, but like more of something that comes from maybe a martial technique, which is interesting to think about. And then the only other thing is just that you're always thinking about preventative care. So you're doing these things to keep yourself healthy. Right. And that's something that's really important, tied in with all these topics we're talking about. So, yeah.
Okay. Is Gemini next?
Yes.
Okay, good. So if you've got Gemini rising, this new moon is going to fall in your 5th house. So here you're going to plant a seed to express love gracefully. The 5th house is where we give love, whether it be love affairs, children, or your own creativity. So it's in those type of areas where you're going to be planting this seed. It very well could be about artwork, anything like that. So now if we add Mars, what's that going to add to that story?
Oh, to take an action on it. So this isn't just thinking about it. This is like start something, pick up that, whatever, if you're trying to start a painting, like get going on it, like take the first step. I think that's what it does to it. Right. Yeah.
Do a sculpture where you have to, I love to think about Mars, really using Mars artistically. That's a great to think about. So then we move to Cancer. With Cancer rising, this is going to happen in your 4th house. You're going to be planting a seed to bring more cooperative harmony into your interactions with your home, your family. Maybe you need to, paint your living room. Take action. Yeah. How else are we going to add Mars into that?
There's a theme with the 4th house too, of like having to establish greater inner security. So it is, I was trying to think about how to interpret that into an action. It's just something that you need to do to kind of establish more roots. I'm having trouble being specific though about it. I guess another thing I was thinking about in the 4th house is like digging into your lineage a little bit. What's in your lineage, and that might be taking an action, like actually doing some research or like trying to find out, trying to have that conversation with the living relative or something. But
yeah, you could, the strangest things come to my mind. It's like digging a ditch in the backyard because you, yes, whatever. Okay. Going on to, what are we on now?
Leo.
We're on the Leo rising. So with Leo rising, this new moon is happening in your 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of communication. Sometimes siblings are wrapped up in that as well. So you want to plant, a seed for cooperative, harmonious, beautiful communication. Maybe it's time to start writing your book or something along those lines, or have a conversation that might have to be a battle with a sibling. I just threw Mars in there.
Yes. I was thinking too, the 3rd house can also be close friends. So I think those friends that are kind of like siblings too. So I was thinking about a literal interpretation of go out on a bike ride with a friend. Like this is, how do you navigate your environment? And then you have close friends in the mix. So I think those are both good 3rd house designations, and throwing Mars in it's a very active way of confronting your environment. So
yeah, you're not going to want to sit in a coffee shop having a cup of tea with that friend or that sibling. You're going to want to get out and be doing something physical.
Yeah.
Okay, so then with Virgo rising, this is happening in your second house, which is really the house of self-worth, the house of money and resources. So planting a metaphorical seed of bringing some kind of elegance or refinement into that area. You know, you might want to rethink where you donate money this month and bring it into a place that has some real Martian, not Martian, some martial significance to you.
Yeah. I was thinking, yeah, like this kind of idea of like moving your money around. Like maybe it's like having to kind of adjust which, moving money into, I mean, maybe you're trying to set aside money for, the future or whatever, but moving some money into a different account or something like that. And then personally, I just think that, I don't know, just working with the relationship to yourself and how you value yourself, and taking a physical action on that. So I don't know, taking yourself out to ice cream as a way of valuing yourself.
And
you
I
know?
think, think about what makes you really angry in the culture and take whatever money you donate each month to some, lovely cause and move it to that.
Hmm.
That's what I think.
Oh, that's cool. I like that too.
Yeah, I have Virgo rising, so I've already got that one in mind.
Yes, like
Okay. So then if you have Libra rising, this is going to fall in your first house. So this is very, very personal. And you're going to be planting a metaphorical seed to create more charm in your own personality. But with Mars, it's not going to be just all this light, pretty charm. You're going to want to have a backbone behind that as well. And kind of allowing others to see a different side of you, maybe. What do you think,
Mhm.
Jennie?
Well, I was thinking it's interesting because the first house, it's like such a powerful house because it's you, it's the self. And I was thinking about this balance between like looking at yourself and like, are you good at taking action? Are you somebody who shies away from taking action? Like, are you the type of person who kind of is more like copacetic and maybe gives away yourself a bit too much? So it's that balance between Mars and Venus in a way, the masculine and feminine. Like what are you doing and what part needs work? So that's the self-development part of the first house. Like, do you need to step up more or do you need to calm down more is kind of the fundamental
That's great.
question. But
Awesome. Okay. Now, if you've got Scorpio rising, this is going to fall in your 12th house. So this is, here you're planting a seed of inner understanding, 12th house really being that place that you're not really fully conscious of. So this could be a time to, begin a healing journey to really support the growth of your own understanding of your unconscious.
yeah.
Any
Yeah.
other thoughts on that?
I was thinking that with the Mars energy in there, this is the time to book that retreat or, commit to it. Like, think about what you need and then sign up for it. Whether I know you can do some stuff in person now and some of it's virtual, but at any rate, signing up for it, making it start to happen. I mean, it's always tricky, the 12th house, because it's so much about the suffering. So it's a little bit of like, what do you need to grieve? What do you need to forgive? What do you need to release? And yeah, with Mars, it's just saying we'll do it.
Right.
Take the action. So
Stop fooling around, make a plan, get on it. Right. Okay, so with Sagittarius rising, this is happening in your 11th house. And the 11th house is really where we receive love from community. So you want to really think about that. Do you need to develop a new community? Do you need to take some action to bring more harmony to the community that you function in at this point?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I think the 11th house is so much like how much you're able to accept help and not feeling alone and understanding that what you're doing is part of a bigger group, a bigger community. So it's a very important house for all of those things. So
Yeah. I love the 11th house. I really do. I love that polarity between the 5th and the 11th is so, so strong. Okay.
yeah.
So then if you've got Capricorn rising, this is falling in your 10th house. So this is going to be about your career. It's going to be about planting a seed to take action with Mars there on bringing more Libra type qualities to the work that you do in the world. So, you know, this could be a time to update your resume or plan your retirement, or really think about what, you know, where you're going with your career and plant a seed there.
Yeah. I think with careers too, there's always a tricky balance. Like there's parts that feel harmonious for many people, and then there's always those parts that are difficult, no matter what profession you're in. So it's trying to kind of, if the parts that feel difficult, how can you bring a little bit more ease to them, or maybe bring more of a sense of aesthetics to your office or that kind of thing too.
Right.
Make
Paint a
it
beautiful
easier.
picture, put it on the wall of your office.
Yeah.
And if you're working from home, you can put it behind you on the wall.
Yep.
Artwork by Mary Hill, by the way. Okay. So now if you have Aquarius rising, this new moon is in your 9th house, which is the house of higher understanding. It encompasses things like travel and education and other, you know, the understanding of other cultures. So you're going to want to plant a metaphorical seed to really grow your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe plan a trip. Maybe it's going to have to be a virtual trip, but planning some way of taking action to develop a plan for your own higher understanding.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was thinking on top of that is just consider finding teachers that in a topic that you're not very comfortable with, like some place where you need to grow and you might need a bit of help with. So, you know, feeling willing to find out who that teacher might be that can help you.
Right. And if it's astrology you want to study, you're talking to two awesome teachers. Or
That's right.
So contact us.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have Pisces rising, this new moon is happening in your 8th house, and
Mhm.
you're going to want to plant that seed to develop a deeper understanding of other people who think very differently than you do. The 8th house is really about other people's values, other people's baggage, you could say, you know, from your perspective, it may be their baggage. But, you know, the 8th house is very much about how we navigate these differences between ourselves and other people. So this would be the time to plant a really strong seed to help you navigate that by deeper understanding.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's sort of that you know, are you letting fear of conflict restrict parts of your relationships, you know, or kind of taking the time to notice like what kinds of things do you do to keep peace in your relationships, and kind of observing some of those are going to be healthy and some of them might be not so healthy, and it's all just about your own growth. So it's a good time to kind of question those things and just notice when stuff triggers you, and allow yourself to kind of be with the trigger a little more than rather than having to react. So it's kind of that observing yourself and how you're dealing with other people in stressful situations. So
Very much. Very good. Okay. So we covered all of that. Is there anything else that we need to talk about here?
I mean, I think we've mostly covered it. I think the only thing I would just reiterate is just we are in the middle of a Mercury retrograde cycle. I personally think that this October 6th date of the Libra new moon is the beginning of, it's really shifting, the beginning of shifting the energy of that Mercury retrograde, where we've kind of been going down into the underworld for the first half of it in a couple different ways. And then this is kind of it's starting to pivot, and there's starting to be this feeling of like climbing back out. So that's one nice thing about this new moon that I just think is pretty cool and unique to it. It's not the usual state of affairs. So yeah.
I think it's a really fascinating new moon. I really kind of like it. Oh, the other thing that we haven't said, I don't believe we covered this beforehand, was that the full moon, okay, so we plant a seed now, the full moon occurs on October 20th in Aries. And then if we're looking at the larger cycle, we will be looking at the Libra full moon that happens on April 16th, 2022. So the seed you plant now, you know, in the short term, it's a 2-week deal. But in the longer term, it's a 6 months for it to grow and come into illumination.
Yeah, great.
So there, let's stop sharing this. And thank you all for listening. If you want to find Jennie, you can find her at hiddenpathastrology.com.
Mhm.
And you can find me at astrolore.org. And yeah, we would welcome conversations with any of you. Send us questions, sign up for our consultations and teaching. And thank you very much. We'll do another recording in 2 weeks for the full moon.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye,
Bye.
Jennie.
Bye, Laurie.